Hello and welcome to this 3P conversation with my dear friend Ian, the Arena System. We are here for a multiple perspectives podcast. And our starting point, I think I'm going to go with the 1984 theory
Mm.
of thought crimes. And
Ooh.
so I was led to this. I was watching my law tubers that I
Mhm.
quite enjoy, and ChatGPT is being sued by a number of people in the US for a number of reasons. The the general consensus, though, across the three cases that I looked at, and there's probably 50, I would imagine, but the three cases that I was looking at
Mhm.
was they went to ChatGPT and asked how to commit crime that they were committing, and
Mhm.
ChatGPT then became like a co-conspirator. And so it's being sued as a co-conspirator. It's also being sued in one of the cases as like operating as a therapist without a license, which I find very, very
Yeah.
fascinating.
Mhm.
But the law tuber that I was watching was saying, do we want everything that we put into these search engines, so whether it's what we type into Google or whether it's what we type into ChatGPT, to become the basis of whether we committed a crime or not? Is having the thought, and I know my instant answer, but I was more drawn to, is having the thought, and by the time we're typing it into a search engine or an AI conversation bot thing, we've progressed beyond thought to expression. But is having thought, because I was reminded of 1984. Have you read 1984 or seen it?
Uh, read the book. We probably way back in our political theory classes, and have seen different adaptations. Most recently, we saw adaptation on Broadway on the stage that was quite good.
Nice. So I haven't read the book. I have read the study guide for the book and
Mhm.
facilitated the learning of that for my child in home education. We did go and see an adaptation by a small Australian company, and they
Mhm.
had 5 people that played it and they navigated through. It was very
Mhm.
well done. They'd done it 20 years beforehand, and one of the originals had come back and they brought in new
Mhm.
actors to do it. It was quite good. And there's one piece that I really take issue with, and that's the we will sacrifice others for our own safety. And I think that is probably true for some people, but the do it to Julia at the end, it just bugs me for some reason. I couldn't quite, and I thought at some point I need to read the book. But for today's conversation, what I wanted to focus on
Mhm.
was the thought is the crime. So where he's hiding, well, in the adaptation we saw, he's hiding
Mhm.
under a desk writing, and the putting it into onto paper really turns it into something that you can be caught and punished for. And
Mhm.
they operate on having the thought is the crime, and that's where everything derails. And then you start to think about, well, if what we type into these search engines, so, and the lawyer was speaking to half of you in my chat will have gone and typed in, how long does it take to die in the cold? Because that was one of the Google searches being used in
Mhm.
one of the court cases that we'd watched. And so it's, where do those search engines, and then the timing on the search engines is always really interesting, because it appears that Google doesn't track time consistently. I mean, time is a construct, but Google doesn't track time and so then it's hard to know whether that search happened before or after the crime.
Mhm.
Now, if it happened after the crime, it's not evidence of guilt necessarily. It could just be, oh look, I've stumbled across this and now I'm curious.
Mhm.
Or if it's done in the middle of committing the crime, then it's probably actually an indicator that, well, they were at least considering that this person was going to die if left out in the snow, which is
Mhm.
one of the court cases we'd been watching. But it led me to this interesting question of, is what we type in Like, should that be searchable? And to that, my answer is a reasonably definitive no, not until something has happened. Like, you can't just
Mhm.
randomly look into people's worlds. Does ChatGPT have an obligation to report some things? Possibly. But even more than that, are our thoughts, and crime is not the right word here, but how powerful are our thoughts? And how much are we bringing to life with our thoughts? And the answer is going to end up as it depends, but let's have a conversation and explore and see what we discover.
You've laid out a beautiful buffet. um,
Well, that was only 3 of the thoughts that I had.
uh, I mean, we'll just get out of the way from, for I'm one of the lawyers in the side, so inside. So if we're talking about can thought be a crime, yes, because anything can be a crime if it's written into law as a crime. Then there are questions as to
That's a
proof and
valid point.
enforceability and whatnot. It could be people might say, well, it's not a crime for us to be speaking on this podcast right now. Well, it is if it's written down in the law that it's a crime, then yes, it is a crime by definition.
Yep.
And typically, at least in Western legal systems, right, we're not talking about Russia and China and other authoritarian regimes. In Western legal systems based on the European liberal tradition, thoughts typically are not crimes, but thoughts can be evidence to prove that other crimes were committed. They can be supporting evidence. And when I say thought, I don't mean the neurotransmitters in your brain firing off. I mean, then there has to be evidence of the thought itself, right? So you wrote it down or you told someone. So I can have the thought, that darn neighbor who plays his music all night. Boy, I wish he would freeze to death in the cold.
Yeah.
Now, that by itself is just me being, cranky. And it's the sort of thing that people all the time, and nearly all the time, I'm not going to go act on that and dump him in the snowbank up the hill somewhere. But I might get so upset that I do decide to go dump him in the snowbank up the hill because the dude's got it coming. He shouldn't have been playing his music so loud. And every reasonable person would agree with this. So now my thought of I'm going to dump this dude in the snow and the fact that I just told it to Amy on a recording, if when the police find his body and start thinking, gee, who did it? And they start looking around the interwebs to think, boy, maybe it wasn't, we know that his neighbors don't like him because of his loud music. We're going to start looking at the search histories, and now they're going to find this podcast and they're going to think, oh boy, there Amber goes. Or, well, I could just hide inside. Poor Julian will get in trouble because he's the host. Sorry, buddy. Right. There goes Ian, the body with the legal name of Ian. Look, we already know Ian doesn't like this guy. We know Ian talked about letting him freeze to death in the snow, and now we found his body in the snow. So now suddenly my thought is evidence that makes me a prime suspect in the crime.
Yeah. Which was, so one of the cases I was watching, I don't recall which one it was, but she'd been having a conversation. That was Corey Richards. She'd been having a conversation with a colleague and had said, my life would be so much better if my husband was dead. Now, how many of us have said that or thought that about our spouses along the years? Mm-hmm. Which was the defense's argument. It's like everybody says that. And I would think that I resonated with that. There were a couple of other things that the defense team kind of went with. Everybody, it's like, who hasn't signed paperwork on behalf of their spouse? I'm like, no, that one I'm not buying into. Everyone has done. I suspect you could probably get 50-50 on a jury, perhaps.
I'm not going to comment on that one on a recording.
Fair enough. But
lots of people have thought, things would be easier if my spouse were dead. And 2 seconds later thought, oh my God, that's horrible. I can't believe I thought that. Why would I think
it,
such a
and
thing?
then thought about it a week later. And but because then the spouse did turn up dead, it starts to not look so great.
Yeah.
And so what the lawyer was talking about is where we've got those thoughts, where we've got,
Mhm.
and they, I mean, they have to be articulated in some way. They have to be spoken or written or typed, or
Right.
at this point in time, and I'm not entirely convinced that I'm accurate, but at this point in time, generally speaking, the things are not reading our thoughts. Though having said that, there have been times where I've had
Mhm.
thoughts and I have not spoken them out loud, and then ads have appeared in my Facebook feed. And so, whether that's just good probabilities playing out or whether they are actually reading my thoughts, I don't know, which is why I'm not entirely convinced that we're not at that level of technology yet. I suspect
Mhm.
it's just that I fit that demographic, and potentially they'd been planting seeds, and it was the seeds that then created the thought, which leads into
Right.
the do we create our own thoughts? Do we create our own belief?
Mhm.
I think sometimes yes, and frequently no. There's a really cool movie, its name eludes me. It's got Will Smith in it, and it's a gambling ring to some degree, but they're petty thieves, and he goes out and he's teaching this young girl
Focus
focus. It is,
with Margot Robbie.
and
Mhm.
they are
Mhm.
planting these seeds for
Mhm.
55
Oh, yes. Yeah, for the
in
gambler
the
in
football
the
game.
football, yeah. Mhm.
And so the song had 55 in his native language over and over
Mhm.
again, and there was like all of these signs that
The
point
tramp
him to.
stamp on the prostitute and
That's
yeah,
right, yeah, it
everything,
was
yeah.
like it
Mhm.
was really well done, but it's just these
Yeah.
planting of seeds over and over again, so that when he's looking at the field, he recognizes the face and he recognizes the number 55,
Mhm.
and you only, I think it takes 2 or 3 times for him to pick 55, but you just keep doubling down until he
Right.
picks,
Mhm.
because you know at some point he's gonna pick that one that's been fully
Mhm.
primed. And so whether or not Facebook was fully priming me, and that's why I had the thought and then the ad appears, is
Mhm.
also highly possible. It's one of the reasons that we use school now more than Facebook.
At least until school gets a better algorithm.
Well, so the
Mhm.
benefit of school
Mhm.
is that the creators pay for the platform.
Mm.
So
Oh,
every
right.
community on school is
Mhm.
paid. They don't
Mhm.
need advertisements to pay because the community
Mm.
leaders are all paying.
Right.
So it's whoever is running the community is already, school is making their profit without needing ads. So I don't know that they'll go down the advertising route because they've monetized it in a different way. Whereas in Facebook, that's how they make their money. It's how they make their profits.
Right.
And so it's kind of the difference between the ABC, which is our free to air TV channel,
Mhm.
and though I have noticed it doesn't have ads for products. It has ads for other TV shows. Like, it catches you in this loop of
Yeah. It
watching
still
it.
wants you engaged. Yeah.
Whereas the others have ads for products.
Mhm.
It's one of the reasons that I quite liked YouTube for so long as well, though I am noticing they're getting a little bit more mainstream in their ads. But that priming creates an interesting, like, did we think it or were we primed to it? And if we're being primed to it, are we then responsible for the thought crime that we had, or is someone else responsible for the thought crime? And that creates a slightly warped version. But the element that captures my attention is how much control do we have over our thoughts, which is attached to the priming,
Mhm.
and how much power do our thoughts have? So if you go into the manifesting woo-woo communities, how much power do, and most of them will say you have to say it out loud. Most of them say you've got to turn it into affirmations. You've got to speak it and feel it for it to come true. I don't know how accurate that is.
Oh, I'm trying to synthesize all of the contributions from inside.
I want to say everyone can have a turn, but we've got an hour.
Yeah, no, I'll stay fronting, unless the system pushes me out, which it might. Um, Oh God, yeah, it probably will shortly. Um, I mean, putting aside, it is funny because as with you, we are very invested in the woo woo community. We love all this. We call it the woo woo bullshit. We love it. It's beautiful. We play
Yep.
with it all the time. Our clients are in it. We're in it. And if you speak, and all this stuff in the, well, quantum physics tells us, which is funny because if you talk to a physicist who practices quantum physics every day, they
They
will
are
tell
not
you, no, it
wrong.
doesn't tell you any of that. It's nonsense. Quantum physics does not predict any of that. That's not what it says. So putting that aside, like, let's get out of the sciencey stuff and what's demonstrable in the laboratory. We personally believe thoughts are powerful in and of themselves, but we also believe their power is limited and lessened until they're spoken on and acted upon, because we still do live in this three-dimensional reality, which has certain we're not big on prescriptive rules. In fact, we might have talked about that last night. There are certain attributes to this reality, and speaking things out loud does add a power to it,
Mhm.
if only from giving yourself momentum to do something with that thought. I dare say I can sit here and have the thought and have all the beautiful incense and sage and all the beautiful, the crystals and all the great stuff, and surround myself with love and do everything with perfectly, and imagine that I'm going to have $1 million in my bank account suddenly. And when I log into the bank account, it's, I'm not expected. That's not going to be there, right? It doesn't
Yep.
work that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is definitely we've got to move in the direction of the alignment is the
Mm-hmm.
language that comes to mind. There's got to be
Yes.
that,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and we've got to be open to it. So one of the things with putting things into words is that it's easy to say something that we don't necessarily believe. It's easy to say things that we don't necessarily align with
Mm-hmm.
energetically. And it's one of my objections to affirmations, particularly affirmations given to me by somebody else,
Mm.
because they're not mine and I don't believe them. And saying that over and over again isn't priming me, it's just pissing me off.
Well,
Whereas,
indeed, then it's not helpful. We
yeah,
have um, we have taken certain I almost said advertisements. That's funny, given what we're just talking about.
well, being that they're
Affirmation,
not that far different in the action that they're trying to do, it is a
right?
priming activity.
So it kind of makes sense as a verbal slip there. Um, we have slightly modified some affirmations in ways to make them, that makes them feel more alignment. Our classic one
Yeah,
is, people say I am enough. We had to move that to we are enough for us, and then add that we are enough for us, not just we are enough,
yeah,
because we may not be enough for you and we can't control that. So we started saying we are enough for us, and that affirmation now works wonders for our system because it's in alignment. And we have used other affirmations that we've done the fake it till you make it with them and had some success with that.
yeah. And affirmations seem to work really well for a lot of people. It
Mm-hmm.
it will come down to personal preferences. And I also think like it will come down to human design. There's a whole bunch of things coming through my mind as to how that may shape out. The affirmations are an interesting space. Mine definitely, so my throat in human design is connected directly to my identity. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's why I've really struggled with the affirmations and my, and I know I'm going super geeky, think high level for a moment, but the connection. So the throat has, I think, 9, maybe not 9, but there's like several different gates that come off it that create consistent energies if you buy into the human design philosophy.
Right.
Mine is I remember. And
Oh.
so unless I can remember, so there's I imagine is one of the gates that's there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's I know and I understand and all of these different, at some point I'll go through that will get added into the 3P library
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. But for me, my defined channel is I remember. And so if
Mm.
I'm trying to say something and I don't have a reference point of where that was accurate in my past, it instantly feels
Mm.
misaligned. And so I was reflecting on this yesterday.
Mm.
I'm like, if I start to bring in affirmations where they're coming from my memory,
Mhm.
they will probably actually work far better for me. And at some point, I'll experiment with that and play with it, because all of this is just an experiment to me. And does it work? Does it not work? And sometimes I revisit things that didn't work, and now they do work. And sometimes things that did
Right.
work don't work. Like it's a shifting and evolving terrain.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, because I'm thinking, like, for you, an affirmation could be, I can do hard things. And that is anchored in your memory that you can do hard things.
Yeah, and I have done hard things. Like
Mm.
I can come up with 10 memories of where I've
Mhm.
done hard things. We don't need to share all of those memories. Um,
We saw your parts contributing.
like, no, we don't need to go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
What's interesting, as I shared with you before we were on camera, I've been watching back videos from the last couple of years. I mean, and some of those were hard things as well, but was talking about, and there was stuff there that I'd forgotten about completely.
Mhm.
A defining moment from when I was in year 2, and that was what popped up just then. And I'm like, yeah, but we've worked out we don't need to rehash that. We spoke about that 5 years ago. It didn't need to be reinvigorated again as to what
Mhm.
happened. But it was definitely a I can do hard things example, which I think it is why I'd been sharing it on the conversation. But the speaking it out loud definitely transforms the thought into something that has more power.
Mhm.
The speaking out loud what we don't want, it's so common.
Mhm.
And the continuing to get, which is why we're not going to reactivate this memory from year 2. It doesn't, like, the memory has been reactivated. It doesn't need to be respoken. I've definitely lost the emotional energy around that. If I start speaking about it, it's going to come back to life.
Mhm.
And so there is a time for speaking and being heard and validated about past experiences that didn't serve us well. Like if we continue with my I remember, there is also a time for let's look for the light. I remember, far out.
Mhm.
Now all I'm going to notice today is how often I use the phrase I remember.
Mm.
I remember in my coach training, what was being looked for was struggle. Remember a time when you struggled. Remember a time that was hard. Remember, and my body is recoiling going through. Whereas there was very, very rarely, remember a time where you did conquer hard things. Remember a time where you succeeded. Remember a time where you did feel love wholly and completely. Remember a time,
Mm.
and it's the difference between you are broken and need fixing, and you are whole and complete and need to
Yeah.
reclaim that. And I can hold both of those beliefs to be true. I could put evidence forward for both of them.
Oh, yeah.
One that serves me better is I am whole and complete, and I'm just covered in ooey gooey mess, to use the corporate
Mhm.
crust analogy.
Mhm.
So I did notice the switch. Who did we get? Did I notice that accurately
I
or not? Or we got several.
There was a rapid switch where Amber again. A couple
Okay,
others came in and out very quickly, and I'm not sure who they were.
that's okay.
It was something in your, so I missed some of what you were just saying.
That's okay.
The I remember trying to recover the I'm trying to recover the memories that somebody listen.
That's
um
right. I don't remember what I just said either. So we're on the same
oh,
page.
somebody came in and wanted to add something
Mm,
and then left. Okay, that's what happened.
okay.
um I don't know who it was, but I believe what they wanted to say was, when you talk about the I remember a time when, they wanted to add, you could modify that to say, I remember what it feels like.
I could. I
I think
won't,
that's
but I
how they would like to, whoever it was, that's how they would like to say that. That's really what they're trying to say is, that's a great idea, but here's how we should say it.
yeah. And that's
which means it was
ideal.
probably a little.
And the littles hold great wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, I tend to get far more caught up in my head and my thoughts than my feelings, which will probably not be a surprise to the littles, but be sad for the
Mm-hmm.
littles, I suspect. Ah, brain. The
We are functioning human beings.
Absolutely. All right, so what's competing in my mind, because it's easier just to express it rather than continue to compete
Yeah.
internally. What's
Mm-hmm.
competing in my mind is I was speaking with someone yesterday, and it's still tied in with this, like the we are broken versus we are whole and complete with
Mm-hmm.
muck acquired. And I don't know which of those is accurate. Maybe we are like traumatized and completely screwed up and we are broken and we have to heal and repair. Or maybe we are whole and complete and we're just covered in stuff and we need to wash it away. The one that serves me better tends to be that I am whole and complete and I am looking for the whole and complete. And this comes
Mm-hmm.
back to coaching principle. One of the early coaching principles, what you focus on is what you get. If I
Mm-hmm.
look at I am broken and I need fixing and healing, that's what I will get. And I did for 20 years play in that I am broken, I need fixing, there is
Mm-hmm.
something wrong with me, somebody needs, and generally it was external. It wasn't stuff I was doing internal. It's like if I keep searching, I'll find the person that has the magic wand to heal me. And that was the quest that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've got to the ruby slipper moment where the wizard, not the wizard, the Glinda says, "You had the power all along. You just had to go on this adventure to find it." I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
at that ruby slipper moment, and I feel like in some ways I'm now at. I know you hadn't seen Frozen 2, but Frozen 1 is the typical ambition quest of I'm going out and I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding that I've got the power and I can search for it, and she goes up and she isolates herself and then discovers that she can use her ice powers for good and
Mm-hmm.
serve the community. And it's a typical ambition. How do I become queen quest?
So we were just talking about how long does it take to freeze to death?
How long does it take to freeze to death?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
how long does it take to build an ice castle in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere?
Mm-hmm.
But her second, I was going to say her second book, her second movie, or the second movie in that realm, becomes a meaning quest. And she's searching for, one of the lines in the song is, "Could this be the reason I've been so different all along?" That's not one of the lines in the song, that's the essence of what I'm taking from it in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. I've butchered it completely. And she goes and she finds the different elements and she's collecting different aspects. To me, it's an alter journey. So there's like that collection of different components. And I feel like that's where I'm at now. Like I've done the ambition stuff and now I'm more on this meaning quest, which are the two quests that I see at the moment. At some point, I'll dive more into the human design, and not the human design, the hero's journey. I'll dive more into human design as well. That's an accurate Freudian slip. I'm doing
Yes.
both
Yeah.
concurrently. Those moments, though, of what we focus on is what we get. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're focusing on, I am broken, I need fixing, what we're going to get is I am broken and people who will offer to fix us.
Yeah. And there's
If
nothing
we,
magic about that, right? I
yeah,
mean, again, as people who love the woo-woo crowd, it's almost like, oh, this is a magical. No, this is just how the universe works. If I buy a red Toyota, I suddenly see red Toyotas everywhere because my brain is primed to notice that. That's not magic. That's just how things work.
yeah. And so the woo-woo communities chalk it up as magic. The
Mhm.
psychological communities chalk it up as the reticular activating system.
Mhm.
The scientific community probably chalks it up as something. It's like, where we know we're onto something good when every community agrees it
Mm.
exists. They've all
Yes.
got different
Mhm.
justifications and reasoning for it, but
Right.
everyone is agreeing on what we focus on is what we will get. And whether it's
Mhm.
the reticular activating system in our brain, whether it's the butchered quantum physics diagnosis that the woo-woo community brings, whatever it
Right. Whether
is,
it's Mother Mary or the wraith in my backyard, or yeah, everybody agrees.
everybody is in agreement that what we focus on is what we get, generally to the exclusion of everything else.
Mhm.
And so if we focus on we're broken and we need fixing, that's what we're going to get. If we focus on we're whole and complete and want expansion, because I'm not stopping this personal growth. Like there was a little while I'm like, well, if I'm not broken and I'm whole and complete, then I don't need to be in this personal development realm. And
Mhm.
that was heartbreaking. I like this space. I love
Mhm.
learning. I love learning patterns and profiles and perspectives and playing in that. And so for me, it's that, well, I'm whole and complete and I can continue expanding. I can continue finding more aspects of myself. This journey within
Yes.
is
It is
never
that
ending.
and, right? Because the
Yeah,
whole and complete, it's how you hold that in your head. You could hold whole and complete in your head to mean I
I'm
have grown
done.
to what I am and I am done growing. Or you can hold it as you are, which is I am whole and complete in my growth and in my expansion. And like us, for example, this is one reason we stopped counting the number of altars in our system. And as soon as we had to know how many of us are, what are your ages and genders and names. As soon as we stopped doing that, the number has actually grown
Yeah,
much more.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, because you're now not keeping score. You're just
Yeah,
playing.
we're just
And
playing, and
playing may
whoever's
not be the
here is
right word,
here. And
but it's
yeah, it's we are all whole and complete, and we are whole and complete with as many of us as there are, and we don't know if it's dozens or hundreds, and it doesn't matter if it's dozens or hundred. We're already well into the dozens, and if it's hundreds, great. Welcome to the fucking party. We love you too.
yeah. And I know my experience of parts work is different, but for me, sometimes parts will appear and then they'll disappear, and that's okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm still whole and complete, whether they're here or whether they're here for a short time or forever. There
Mm-hmm.
is still that essence is, but they don't necessarily need to stay
Mm-hmm.
distinctive.
Right.
There are parts that are staying distinctive, and that's fine. And then there are others that come for a moment and then disappear again, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is still leaving me whole and complete. I don't need to go and search for that part. Where did it get lost?
Right.
It's not lost. It's just hidden
It's yeah.
potentially.
The same is true in dissociative systems, and the psychological, or the psychobabble community, their language for it, which we are not a fan of, but it is useful, is that's the difference between the ANPs, the apparently normal parts, and the EPs, the emotional parts. So Amber, I am what you would call an apparently normal part. I am a fairly, whole and distinct person inside, although I still do need everyone else, as well. And then the emotional parts tend to kind of form and fuse, although, you know, yeah.
Which was how I was taught to do parts work initially, was to look for the emotional parts, and that was why integration made sense in that, because you have the emotion. Once the emotion is expressed, that part no longer needs to
Mm-hmm.
exist as such. Where I play with parts, though, is not in the emotional part, it's in the meta program parts. And when I'm
Mm,
looking for parts, I'm looking for, well, what's the meta program, or what's the psychological model that I'm missing? And missing is such a poor choice of words, but I don't have a better one.
mm,
And I'm looking for that expansion. So if I've come across a model, so
mm,
head, heart, hands, which is
mm.
mind, body, spirit in another in
Okay.
a in
Yeah.
an alien language.
I like head, heart, hands.
So I've
We're,
been playing with something when it's become an alliteration.
we have, well, and lately we've been seeing various things, and we're not doing this to you because we wouldn't, but we're like, we should give that to Amy and have her turn it into a better, yeah, but
Well, you're
yeah.
welcome to. Feel free to share
Mhm.
them in the community, and if I feel so inclined, I will play with them.
Okay.
By all
Yeah.
means, if you find cool things and they're in
Hmm.
the realm of personal development, I'm not gonna. Well, maybe I am going to go and rewrite the electricity system, but
Yeah.
that's not appropriate for the
Hmm.
community. In the
Hmm.
community, we're focused on personal development. If you own a personal
Hmm.
development model that you want me to look at and pull apart and put back together in an Amy fashion, by all means,
Yeah.
share it. That's
Mhm.
open to everybody. I'm
Oh,
more
great.
than happy for you to share. Maybe limit it to one a day. Like, we'll put
Yeah,
some
but
boundaries on this.
Mhm.
But the head, heart, hands was one of the models. And I'm like, okay, well, I can do head really well. Like, I can overthink my way through
Mhm.
absolutely anything and everything.
Mhm.
I've got pretty good with my hands. I can take action. I can do stuff. I can,
Mhm.
like, I tend to be a practical. How connected am I with my heart? Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so let's go and look for that part that fills
Mhm.
that gap. But I'm looking for the meta programs. And because they're the meta programs, there's not an expression of that and then they disappear. There's an
Mhm.
expression of that and then they get to continue to play and experiment and bring that back up continually. Whereas the emotions, once the emotion's felt, the part dissolves.
Mhm.
And so what I'm looking for, and literally every model, this is what I do with every model that I get and I play with, is which existing part already holds that, because I've got quite a few that are
Mhm.
there reasonably consistently. Generally speaking, we cover most of the patterns now. Like, we've got a fairly robust and what tends to
Yeah.
happen these days, rather than creating a whole new part and having to activate a whole new part, I activate parts within those parts,
Mm.
which I get
Yes.
gets a little bit complicated for people that aren't used to parts work. But it's like, who wants to claim this? And generally, there's the contrasts. In my household, we do that as well,
Mhm.
unconsciously. So, and this is the whole concept of internal family systems. It's taking what
Mhm.
they were observing in regular family systems, external family systems, and then transforming it to the internal world.
Mhm.
I literally have a child for every different,
Mm.
so every different disc profile I have a child for.
Mhm.
The
Oh,
different
wow.
like, there is,
Mhm.
and so they are playing out and we're balancing in the family dynamic, which is what most
Yeah.
families are doing. Now, some of us are doing it functionally, some of us are doing it slightly less functionally,
Mhm.
and it's the same within. Some of us are doing it functionally, some of us are doing it slightly less functionally,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But for
Mhm.
me, the reason I won't get rid of parts deliberately, like if they fade away and disappear or they get integrated into another part, that's fine. But they get integrated in rather than removed.
Yes. Mhm.
And I think that's a really key distinction. There is nothing that I am trying to get rid of. I mean, the book title, No Bad Parts. And all you need is the book title. There are no bad
There are
parts.
no bad parts. You could even say parts aren't good or bad. They all have
They are.
they just are. And they all
Yep.
have something they're doing inside that's important, even if you don't know what that thing is right away. And we liked how you talked about parts having parts. We have recently discovered we have at least one subsystem inside
Mm.
where that I can't say who right now, but
Yep.
one of us, they have their own altars as well.
Yep.
And that's the
And they're
thing
the bush
within
girl.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
my system, and system doesn't feel like the right word, but my world, my realm, which is how I
Mhm.
tend to like it I play more in fantasy rather than reality, because
Yeah.
that's the privilege that I have of not being a dissociative system and just being a system that
Mhm.
I don't necessarily need to necessarily ground it in reality.
Well, plus I don't know if you've looked at reality lately, but it kind of sucks.
It
So,
does kind of suck. So going
yeah.
into my fantasy world is quite
Mhm.
pleasant.
Mhm.
So my wizard lives on a cottage. Lives on
Mhm.
a cottage on a cloud.
Mhm.
And when he comes to Earth, he visits other people and he goes on adventures, and that was how all of this started. And there
Mhm.
is that, and it's definitely my coaching role. So the wizard would go out and meet other people and help them find their
Mhm.
parts, and
Mhm.
there's a whole like storyline in that. When he comes to Earth, though, he has an alter ego of
Mm.
the woodcutter,
Ah.
and I'd long thought that they were the same people but didn't have the terminology for it. And so I was thrilled to get introduced to this concept of alter ego,
Mhm.
which is not a new concept. Like, I've been watching Superman for a long time. I wonder what, like, but to put it into internal parts was a new concept. And so the wizard comes to Earth and he is the woodcutter on Earth. And so I've
Mhm.
got an alter ego with the wizard on the cloud and the woodcutter in the cottage in the
Mhm.
forest. And so they've kind of got separate but same elements.
Mhm.
The princess who comes and sits in the daisy field in the woodcutter's world, she has a castle that
Mm.
if she chooses to, and she generally doesn't choose to, because so
Mhm.
that was the very first part that I pulled out was this princess, and she was the good girl, and she was in like a prissy white dress and
Mm.
had to stay clean, and so she goes and plays in the daisy chain field with no shoes on and a dress that's covered in dirt, and like it's that contrast again. It's kind of an alter ego that she's playing as well, but she has her castle world that we don't tend to play in particularly often
Right.
because it doesn't necessarily serve us particularly well. The crone doesn't have another realm yet, and I say
Mhm.
yet because generally they go off and they spark their own adventures. And
Yeah.
the green lady definitely does, but she hasn't revealed it to me. So
Mm.
she's frequently off doing her own thing. But there are definitely parts within those parts, and they all have familiars
You
and
are
other.
mildly dissociative in the DID sense.
Well, potentially.
If one of your parts is doing her own thing inside that you can't always see, I mean that's
Well, yes.
Mhm.
But she's only doing it inside and not outside as
Oh,
far as I
right.
can
So she
tell.
doesn't come out and then do things in the external world, and then you're like, "Who the hell
No.
just did that?" Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no. Which is where I get to just avoid the
Yeah.
dissociative label of the
Right.
diagnosis.
Mhm.
Because in my physical world, she's not, but she is doing things, but I'm always aware of when she, like, so if she intervenes in my physical world, I'm always aware of it. There is no time
Right.
gaps for me in my physical world. There are
Mhm.
plenty in my imagination world. So
Sure.
she's
Okay.
doing stuff internally that I'm
Mhm.
unaware of, but it's only internally, not
Mhm.
externally. At least as far as I am aware, and maybe one day we'll have a different conversation.
Oh, I mean, poor Ian and Julian, they were
Yes,
having
they will.
time gaps and not knowing they were having time gaps. They just thought that's what life felt like because they didn't know
Yeah,
any different. Mhm.
yeah. It's which is part of. I reached out the other day, and it's like, what when you're talking in your sleep, is that a disassociative?
It
And so I'm
yeah,
toying with maybe there is elements of it. It doesn't change
yeah,
much in my functional living though,
right,
and so whether I have the label or not doesn't really matter. I'm operating and functioning in a way that is reasonably functional as far as
right.
society deems functional. And I mean, who gets to decide what
Oh, well,
functional looks
yeah, but by someone else's definition of normal and functional, sure. Mhm.
like? We've moved so far away from the original topic that I'm going to add another one because I can.
It's your podcast, darling. You can do what you want.
Which then raises the how do we define well-being? So these were the three sort of topics
Mm.
that were on my
Oh,
mind,
goodness.
and there was a distinction I was watching in my watching the archives, and
Mhm.
it's a really great conversation, and it does not teach well. So I'm going to get ChatGPT to pull out the key things that I said and either edit the video if it's editable or
Mhm.
just recreate it. Talking about the difference between subjective and psychological well-being.
Mhm.
So subjective well-being, we get to choose the criteria.
Mm.
Psychological well-being is the checklists provided by everybody else. And that could be
Mhm.
the DSM-5 if we're going down that path. I think there may even be up to 6 at this point. It was the DSM-4 when I was studying years ago. Or it could be any number of frameworks.
Mhm.
My preference tends to be towards the psychological well-being end, where I've got a model and a checklist to move through. And I'm sure there are parts inside of me that go, well, no, we want to play subjective. And
Right.
there's not a right or a wrong in this. It's just knowing our preference and knowing. So, subjective well-being, activities like ideal average day would be
Mm.
a subjective well-being. Wheel of life, where you
Mm.
rank each different area out of 10 without a clear. So I turned the wheel of life into something that has measurable components so that you're actually ranking yourself within each area of life based on a psychological and I giggle at myself, like it just demonstrates my love of that. I want the checklist. I'm looking for what's the criteria. Lots of other people, my husband in particular, like literally every profile we do, he and I are opposites. We chose each other for the gaps that were
Right.
closed in forming this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so every profile we do, we're opposites. I am an extrovert, he is an introvert. I like everything, including the way to stack the forks in the dishwasher. And when I decided that maybe he was right and I would actually follow his way of stacking the forks, he decided that I was right and follows my way
Oh
of
dear.
stacking the forks. And so we're still
Well, you maintain a polarity this way.
We have a very nice polarity, but not in the way that polarity teachers teach polarity for relationships,
Right.
because it's a
Yeah.
whole other rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the psychological well-being can fall down, is when you get this checklist. So there's a very extreme polarity teacher that I followed for a little while, and he has this checklist of what is masculine and what is feminine and associates it to male and female.
Dear.
And it was exceptionally extreme, and it caused harm to our relationship
Yeah.
because neither of us fit those boxes well. And eventually Michael managed to convey to me, we have polarity. We're just not following their rules of polarity. Like
Right.
everything we do is opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And there's enough alignment in values, and like we've got children together, and there's enough that brings us together that we're not constantly fighting. But if we're using somebody else's model, we do want to check in. Does it align with our values? Does it align with our essence? And so the generalized psychological models are generally quite good. So 6 core needs, there's a whole bunch of them, all of which are in the library in the community for anybody wanting to find some different frameworks and models. You may
There you
find
go.
that
Just
rabbit hole quite nicely.
nice little plug for the community.
And so I will gather models and then assess against those. What I've stopped doing, though, is gathering models that become too prescriptive and aren't all-encompassing and expansive, and
Yes.
want to put me in a box because of my gender, because I don't fit that. I don't, like, the majority of my internal parts are masculine. Like, just I don't play nicely in that box. And that's okay. So this masculine, feminine, men must, women must, and it just, we did it for about 6 weeks, and it traumatized both of us because I embraced it full, which is what I do. It's how I will take on and I will fully experiment into, and it didn't work. So one of the things was that women must ask permission to interrupt their husbands.
Oh my
And
goodness. Oh.
it triggered me significantly. And it was
Oh
a
dear.
huge stretch for me to step into asking permission all the time. And it annoyed every man in my realm. They were not happy at all. And it really annoyed my husband, because he's like, would you stop asking? You have blanket permission.
Well,
If you need something, interrupt me. I'm here for you. Stop asking permission.
well, and the asking of permission is also the interruption.
It's also an
Because
interruption.
by the time, honey, may I interrupt you? Well, you just did.
You
So
just
why
did.
don't we just deal with whatever needs dealing with? So
Yes. Yeah, it infuriated my husband. However, on the flip side of that, if the children are interrupting me, I do actually like and that pause.
mm-hmm.
And often my answer is no. Like, I'm mid-sentence. if you
Mhm.
interrupt me, I'm going to lose the end of this sentence and it will be lost forever. Like this train of thought
Mhm.
was derailed and never found again.
Yeah.
And so there, that pausing, I quite like. My husband hates it. And so
Yeah.
this is where the genderized or the specific, it's like we have to know ourselves to be able to discern, is this a path? I don't mind asking for permission. I can step into that. I do prefer
Mhm.
to be bold and more outspoken and share freely.
Mhm.
I can go either way on that. But it really annoyed my husband in the moment. And so when
Now,
we're
I will
looking at
say
models,
Heather and us have started asking permission to interrupt, but it has to do with our physical living situation that on weekdays we live in different places. And so I won't just call her or she won't just call me because we could be in the middle of something. She could be in the middle of something. And because I'm not there, I don't know.
yes,
So I will text and say, "Are you able to talk right now?"
yeah.
And if I don't hear back, then I know, okay, she's not able to talk right now.
What I'm giggling at, I rang my oldest, who's moved out of home the other day. He'd been
Mm,
talking to his dad about borrowing some money to navigate life as a grown up out on your own
mhm.
and not necessarily navigating it to the best, well, to the best of his ability, but to the best of functionality.
Right.
Um, and so I rang and I said, have you got a minute to talk? And he didn't. He was in the middle of doing something. He was at work, and he's like, "I
Mm,
don't." But is everything okay? Like it was this really.
right.
He's like, "Why? Why are we asking? Like, are you sitting down?" Was kind of the energy that I'd brought. And he's like, "I'm like, no, I just want to talk to you about money." And he's like, "Oh, all right, I'll call you back in 5 minutes." And he hung up on me.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
but it was just this interesting. It's like I was trying to be respectful so that he knew, like, I wanted to be able to have a conversation where he had the mental capacity to navigate dealing with money, which is not
Hmm.
his strength. But in doing so, I freaked him the fuck out because of the way that I asked. He's like, did someone die? Like, what's happened? Like, it's just, he'd gone to the extreme of, why do I need to sit down? What are you about to tell me? I'm like, no, it's nothing. It's nothing like that. It's just, I don't want you
Hmm.
in the middle of driving down the Blue Mountains in a train that can crash into everything while I'm interrupting you because I knew he was at work. And
Hmm.
so it's like, are you open to a conversation that's going to draw your attention away from
Right.
whatever it is that you're doing?
Hmm.
And he wasn't. He was in the middle of doing something that required concentration. I'm like, well, just call me
Right.
back. And so he called me back when he was then down on the ground walking. So the trains are quite long. It takes quite a long
Oh,
time to
yes.
walk from one end to the other. And so he
Hmm.
called me while he was tromping through the ballast to swap ends.
Right.
So I think he'd been shunting, which requires a level of focus. And that was what I was after. It's like, do you have the focus to have this conversation right now? But in the process, I caused concern because normally I don't ask permission to have
Right.
conversations like that. So it
I
I
like it
don't know.
when those who operate trains are paying attention to what they're doing, personally.
Yeah,
It's a
personally, I do too.
superficial difference. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And driving the car. Like if he'd been driving the
Hmm.
car, I wouldn't have wanted to be talking to him about budgets and spreadsheets. And it's like right now, I
Right.
want you focusing on driving the car and
Hmm.
staying safe on the road. And so, yeah, that was what I was trying to convey. I just didn't convey it very well. I'm not sure where we're at. We
I
covered a
don't
lot.
know.
We started
Oh,
with
dear.
thoughts and turning them into things. And then we moved to parts. And then we moved to psychological versus subjective well-being. And
We
I think that
did.
was the piece that I
And
was
our
going to bring.
computer just warned us that it's running out of battery power, and I didn't bring
Okay,
the charger out here.
that's okay. We'll wrap up very,
Okay.
very shortly. When we're choosing the psychological well-being models, choose wisely would be
Mm,
my best
yes.
advice. Choose aligned models, choose frameworks, experiment with them. By all means, experiment. Be aware though that
Hmm.
those experiments will sometimes go horribly wrong as you discover that they are not aligned for you. And allow yourself the discernment to choose. So I think that's where we'll wrap up. Is there anything else you want to add to wrap up, or is that feeling complete for you? Or
I'm
complete
going to be
enough?
honest with you and say we switched, and my memory of the conversation is not great.
That's cool.
So
All
I
good.
think we haven't met yet. My name is Janine.
Nice to meet you.
And I know why we switched into me.
Is it for the podcast or is it for off the podcast?
It's because the body is very hungry and I'm the cook.
Ah, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll wrap up this podcast. If you've enjoyed this conversation, if you want to look for models and frameworks and whatever else, then feel free to join the community. If you want to understand more about the multiple perspectives that Ian brings to the conversation, you have a question, there'll be an email below that you can connect and ask questions about what it's like to live as a dissociative system. And we look forward to connecting with you soon.
We do. Thank you, everyone.